India, ex-principal advisor to the Prime Minister and current non-executive part-time chairman of ICICI Bank. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Dr. Alok Kumar Mishra, Joint Secretary, Office in Charge, Association of Indian Universities Centenary Celebration. Sir, please join us on stage. Thank you so much. Ma'am, you may join the audience, please. We would now like to play a short video presentation to watch our guest of honor, Mr. Sinha's remarkable journey and accomplishments. Can we please play the video? To play a short video presentation to watch our guest of honor, Mr. Sinha's remarkable journey and accomplishments. Can we please play the video? A short video presentation to watch our guest of honor, Mr. Sinha's remarkable journey and accomplishments. Can you please play a short video presentation to watch our guest of honor, Mr. Sinha's remarkable journey and accomplishments. Can you please play May we request all the guests to please join us on stage? Thank you so much. I now invite our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mukherjee, to address the gathering and grace with her words. Ma'am, please.
Good morning. A very warm welcome to all of you and to our honored guest, Professor Sinha, and our honored colleague from the All India Association of Indian Universities. This is a very special occasion because this is the 100 years, the centenary celebration of the association. And as I'm sure you will hear shortly, that this is one of the largest associations of universities in the world. And we are very privileged to have such an association amongst us and a very honored guest to deliver the centenary lecture. So without further ado, I welcome all of you to the event, and we have, after following the lecture, we will have an honorary doctorate ceremony. So I'm greatly eagerly looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. To carry forward this momentous celebration, I now invite Dr. Alok Mishra to share his thoughts and reflections on this centenary milestone. So please.
सबसे पहले तो शिव नादर विश्वविद्यालय के सभी जो ऐसे प्रबुद्ध सारे प्रोफेसर्स, टीचर्स और यहाँ के जो बहुत ही डायनामिक वाइस चांसलर मैडम, मैं आपके स्वागत के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आज हम ऐसे वक्त में यहाँ पे ये कार्यक्रम आयोजित कर रहे हैं जब देश के बहादुर नौजवानों ने देश की अस्मिता और उसके स्वाभिमान की रक्षा के लिए सीमाओं पे हुंकार भरी है। एक नया इतिहास लिखने के लिए कटिबद्ध है। भारत एक नई ऊंचाइयों को छूने के लिए, जहां जय जवान जय किसान के साथ साथ भारत के प्रधानमंत्री ने जय अनुसंधान का भी उद्घोष कर दिया है, और उसमें विश्वविद्यालयों की जो भूमिका है वह बहुत महत्वपूर्ण हो जाती है। हम ऐसे वक्त में हैं जहां पे न जाने कब कोई सायरन बजे और हमें अलर्ट होना पड़े। राष्ट्र सर्वोपरि है। आज ये कार्यक्रम है जो पूर्व नियोजित तरीके से ये यहाँ पे आज हम सब बैठे हुए हैं, लेकिन हमें यहाँ बैठे रहते हुए हमें उन बहादुर नौजवानों के लिए जो सीमाओं पर अपने जान की बाजी, अपने जान को हथेली पे रख करके बॉर्डर पे हैं, उनके लिए हम सब प्रार्थना करें और उनके स्वाभिमान, उनके जो शौर्य और बल के लिए जो है हम यहाँ से दुआएं करें कि वो देश के लिए विजय और देश की जो आकांक्षाएं हैं, देश का जो एक अपना स्वामित्व है, उसको स्थापित कर सके विश्व में। आज हम कार्यक्रम का प्रारंभ जैसा राष्ट्रगान के साथ हुआ और हमेशा होता है, तो राष्ट्र सर्वोपरि रहता है हमेशा। इस राष्ट्र के अंदर में आज क्योंकि हम भारतीय विश्वविद्यालय संघ एसोसिएशन ऑफ इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के 100 वर्ष के पूरे होने पर पूरे देश के अंदर में ऐसे 100 ऐसे उद्बोधन, ऐसे जो है देश के निर्माण के लिए जो ऐसे विषय उनको लेकर के पूरे देश के अंदर 100 लेक्चर की एक सीरीज प्रारंभ की गई है। उनमें जो आपका विश्वविद्यालय है, इस देश का जो एक उभरता हुआ महान विश्वविद्यालय है, ये शिव नादर विश्वविद्यालय ने एक ऐसा कार्यक्रम यहाँ पे करने का जो अपना वचन दिया कि हम इसे इस रूप में करेंगे, और हम सबके बीच में हम सबके आदरणीय माननीय प्रदीप कुमार सिन्हा जी को आपने बुलाया, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत आभार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपके नाम में ही वो प्रदीपता, प्रदीप नाम में ही वो ऐसा है कि जो एक नई रोशनी, नए राह दिखाने की जो अपने में सामर्थ्य रखते हैं, जिन्होंने लंबे समय तक भारत सरकार को निर्देशित किया है, ये कह लें कि उन्होंने अपनी सेवाओं को प्रदान किया है। तो आज ऐसे आदरणीय, ऐसे महान रूप में जिन्होंने देश की प्रशासनिक सेवा में देने के साथ साथ उन्होंने माननीय प्रधानमंत्री कार्यालय में भी अपनी जो है महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका अदा की है, तो उनके लिए एक जोरदार तालियां, उनका एक स्वागत हम सब। मैं बहुत गर्व का अनुभव कर रहा हूं, हम सब के लिए गर्व चीज़ है कि भारत में विश्वविद्यालय की जो व्यवस्था है और इसके लिए जो ये संगठन है, ये विश्व का सबसे बड़ा, वर्ल्ड का सबसे बड़ा एजुकेशन नेटवर्क जो है वो भारत में है, जिसे भारतीय विद्यालय संघ कहते हैं। और मैं 2 मिनट में इसकी पूर्व पीठिका को इसके आपको अवगत कराना चाहूँगा कि ये 1919 में सट्टर कमीशन, तत्कालीन कलकत्ता कमीशन के रिकमेंडेशन पे इंटर यूनिवर्सिटी बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया की स्थापना का जो है वो उस वक्त एक पत्र जारी किया गया कि इस प्रकार के देश के अंदर में, तो उसमें इंग्लिश गवर्नमेंट थी और करीब 14 से 13-14 विश्वविद्यालय हो चुके थे उस वक्त। और ये था कि ऑक्सफोर्ड विश्वविद्यालय में 1916 में एक वहाँ कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ जिसमें भारत के कुछ वाइस चांसलर ने करीब 11 लोगों ने वहाँ भाग लिया। और उस वक्त ये आया कि बहुत असुविधा होती, जो भारत कभी अंग्रेजों ने सोचा नहीं था कि वो अंग्रेज उसमें ये था कि कभी भारत उनसे अलग होगा। तो ये था कि यहाँ के जो लोग पढ़ने जाते हैं और उनमें शिक्षा के उस मानदंड और उसकी इक्वलेंस को लेकर बहुत सारी समस्याएं होती थी और वहाँ और यहाँ दोनों तरफ होती थी। तो यह इच्छा जाहिर की कि एक ऐसा बोर्ड होना चाहिए जो शिक्षा को पूरे देश के अंदर में, हिंदुस्तान के अंदर में उसको एक परिपत्र जारी करे जो कि उसको इक्वलेंस को स्थापित कर सके। तो उस परिक्रम में जो है ये 1916 में जो वहाँ पर कॉन्फ्रेंस के दौरान जो बात आई और वहाँ कमीशन में उसको फाइनली रिकमेंड किया गया। और 1924 में तत्कालीन जो वायसराय है उन्होंने शिमला में एक मीटिंग कॉल की और उसमें वाइस चांसलर कॉन्फ्रेंस, पहला वाइस चांसलर कॉन्फ्रेंस जो है वो मई 1924 में शिमला में हुआ। और उस शिमला में कॉन्फ्रेंस जो हुआ वो कॉन्फ्रेंस वायसराय ने ही हेड किया। और तत्कालीन उस वक्त पूरे भारत के अंदर सिर्फ एक एजुकेशन का उस मंत्रालय ऐसे नहीं होते थे, इस कॉल्ड एजुकेशन कमिश्नर ऑफ इंडिया। भारत का एक जो है कमिश्नर होता था और उसमें मिस्टर लिंटन वहाँ पे कमिश्नर थे जो ऑफिशिएटिंग थे उस वक्त थे। और वो वाइस चांसलर थे, उस की मीटिंग्स कॉल की गई और हुआ कि इस बोर्ड को बनाने के लिए पूरी परिकल्पना पे डिस्कशन हुआ इसी को लेकर के। और फाइनली वो एक प्रपत्र जारी हुआ और उसमें ये बात रखी गई कि एजुकेशन जो है विश्वविद्यालय है, ये किसी देश का नहीं है। यहाँ से निकलने वाले जो लोग हैं पूरे विश्व की मानवता, पूरे इस यूनिवर्स की रक्षा के लिए, इसलिए इसको यूनिवर्सिटीज़ कहते हैं हम। वो अपने आप में एक यूनिवर्सल फैक्ट है। तो युवा की कोई सरकार का कोई कमिश्नर, कोई अधिकारी उसको हेड नहीं करेगा। लेट द वाइस चांसलर चूज द लीडर्स, वो उनमें से खुद अपने चेयर को चूज करें। और उसमें मिनट्स में लिखा कि द गवर्नमेंट हैव ए स्लाइटेस्ट इंटेंशन टू इंटरवीन इन द प्रोसेस एंड प्रोसीजर ऑफ द बोर्ड। गवर्नमेंट की जरा सी मंशा नहीं कि एजुकेशन किसी बोर्ड में वह इंटरवीन करे, प्रोसेस करे या किसी प्रकार दखल दे। तो ऑटोनॉमी की आज लगातार चर्चा होती कि जो विश्वविद्यालय हैं वो अपनी तरह से मानदंड बनाएं, अपने शिक्षा के प्रतिमान को स्थापित करें और वहाँ की आवश्यकताओं, ज़रूरतें, विश्व की ज़रूरतों को ध्यान रखते हुए ऐसे पठन पाठन के कार्यक्रम, अनुसंधान के कार्यक्रमों को करें। ये ऐसी चीज़ वो रही। और इस थीम को लेकर के वो जो बोर्ड बना, इंटर यूनिवर्सिटी बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया, और वो बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया फाइनली 1925 में 23 मार्च 1925 को उसकी पहली मीटिंग जो है वो बॉम्बे यूनिवर्सिटी में वहाँ हुई। इसलिए 1925 से जोड़ते हुए ये 100 वर्ष पूरा होता है। तो इस प्रकार बॉम्बे यूनिवर्सिटी से प्रारंभ होता है और ये यात्रा इस रूप में आती है। हमें गर्व के साथ कहना पड़ेगा कि भारत के 2 महान ऐसे राष्ट्रपति जो भारतीय विद्यालय संघ का नेतृत्व कर चुके, जो वहाँ पे काम कर चुके, जो प्रेसिडेंट के रूप में रहे, उनमें से आदरणीय सर्वपल्ली राधाकृष्णन जी जो AIU के पहले प्रेसिडेंट रहे। पहले का मतलब इससे मतलब पूर्व में वो 41-42 के अराउंड वो वहाँ बेसिकली प्रेसिडेंट रहे। उसके बाद जाकिर हुसैन साहब जो है वो उन्होंने नेतृत्व किया और बाद में राष्ट्रपति बने भारत के। और ऐसे न जाने कितने और लोग हैं जिन्होंने सरकार में इस प्रकार के योगदान दिए हैं। कार के श्यामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी जी भी, क्योंकि वो कलकत्ता यूनिवर्सिटी के वाइस चांसलर थे, उन्होंने भी भारतीय विद्यालय संघ का नेतृत्व किया है। तो ये कुछ ऐसे हैं जिनको कि हम नाम सुने हैं और जानते हैं, ऐसे महान लोगों का नेतृत्व इसको मिला। और इंटर यूनिवर्सिटी बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया जो सिर्फ भारत तक सीमित नहीं था, उस वक्त श्रीलंका, म्यांमार और नेपाल और हमारा बगल का देश भूटान, ये भी सम्मिलित उसमें रहे। तो बताना पड़ेगा आपको शॉर्ट में और कि 1973 में श्रीलंका अलग हुआ तो इंटरनेशनल बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया एंड सिलोन के नाम से जाना जाता था। तो उन्होंने अपने आप को अलग होने का, और वर्ल्ड में उस वक्त यूनाइटेड नेशन ने एक बॉडी स्थापित की, यूनाइटेड नेशन स्थापना हो चुकी थी और उनमें यूनेस्को की स्थापना हुई। यूनेस्को ने एक बॉडी वर्ड बनाई जिसका नाम रखा इंटरनेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटीज़, IAU, और ये हुआ उसके तहत में अन्य देशों में ऐसी संस्थाएं बनाने का मुहिम चला। भारत में इस संस्था ऑलरेडी ऐसे काम कर रही थी, तो ये बहुत थॉटफुल तरीके से कि एक दूसरी कोई बॉडी आएगी, तो ये इसलिए इसके नाम को उसी वक्त श्रीलंका ने भी अपने को अलग होने को कहा, तो रिकॉर्ड में चेंज होना था इंटरनेशनल बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया सेलोन के जगह, तो ये हुआ कि क्यों ना इसी को नाम परिवर्तित करके एक नई कोई बॉडी बने, तो इंटरनेशनल बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया का नाम ही इसको 1973 में इसे बदल दिया गया। और इनॉर्मसली ये हुआ कि इंटरनेशनल बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया, जो आज की तारीख में एसोसिएशन ऑफ इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटी के नाम से जाना जाता, तो कई बार विस्मर होता कि ये किस तरह संस्था और किस प्रकार काम करती। तो ये ऐसी संस्था है क्योंकि ये पहले से ही अन्य देश के एजुकेशन की पहली ऐसी गवर्निंग बॉडी है जिसने ये काम करती रही। और 1948-50 के अराउंड AIU ने ही यूनिवर्सिटी ग्रांट कमीशन की स्थापना की बात रखी और प्रपत्र बनाए कि इंग्लैंड के अंदर यूनिवर्सिटी ग्रांट कमीशन होता था, उसी आधार पर हुआ कि भारत के अंदर बने, और इसको बनाने के लिए प्रपत्र रखा गया कि ये देश के अंदर में एक ग्रांट कमीशन होना चाहिए जो विश्वविद्यालयों को सहयोग करे। अदरवाइज पहले राजवाड़े जितने भी राजघराने हैं और लोगों के द्वारा सहयोग से ये चीज़ होती थी। तो इस प्रकार से भारत में नई जो उच्च शिक्षा के स्थापत्य और उसके विकास के लिए कार्य किए गए, और इस प्रकार ये इसका नाम इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हुआ। और ये भारतीय विद्यालय संघ जो है वो इक्वलेंस का काम 100 वर्षों से, जो फॉरेन की जो डिग्री है जो पहले से करता रहा था, वो फॉरेन बोर्ड का इक्वलेंस, इंडियन बोर्ड का भी जो इक्वलेंस ये रहा। साथ साथ में इंटर यूनिवर्सिटी जो गेम होते हैं, वर्ल्ड अभी खेलो इंडिया प्रोग्राम है, वो भी AIU के द्वारा प्लेटफॉर्म से होता है। आपको मालूम होगा यूथ फेस्टिवल, नेशनल एंड इंटरनेशनल यूथ फेस्टिवल जो है वो AIU के द्वारा होते हैं, जिनके द्वारा लोगों को नौकरियां मिलती हैं। जिन सर्टिफिकेट्स जो बच्चे AIU के अंदर खेलते हैं वो तमाम सारी नौकरियों में छूट के लिए अपने अधिकार को, प्रपत्र को जो है एक माना जाता। तो ये गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का स्पोर्ट्स प्रमोशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के रूप में भी उसको मान्यता है। तो ये सारे विश्वविद्यालयों के देश में आज की तारीख में 1000 से ज़्यादा विश्वविद्यालय हैं, और ये अपेक्स बॉडी ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के रूप में से जाना जाता, जो थिंक टैंक के रूप में काम करता। सरकार की जो नीतियां हैं उनको विश्वविद्यालयों तक पहुंचाना, और विश्वविद्यालयों में जो कुछ हो रहा है और कहाँ आने वाले समय में किस प्रकार के चैलेंजेस है उसको करना। और इसके जो प्रपत्र तैयार होते हैं सारी चीज़ें वो पार्लियामेंट में प्रस्तुत किए जाते हैं, पार्लियामेंट में वो पूरी रिपोर्ट भेज जाती है। और जो कुछ सारे इसके हर वर्ष 5 ऐसे जोनल वाइस चांसलर मीट होते हैं, जो पूरे हर राज्यों का मतलब है हर जोन के अंदर में 5-5 राज्यों का करीब ऐसा जोन बनाया गया है, जिनमें नॉर्थ, ईस्ट, साउथ, सेंट्रल ये होते हैं। और लास्ट में एक जो हमारा नेशनल वाइस चांसलर कॉन्फ्रेंस या नेशनल हम एनुअल जो हमारी AGM होती है वो फाइनली एक समाप्त होती है, और उसकी सारी रिपोर्टिंग बन के फिर सारे प्रधानमंत्री, राष्ट्रपति सबके पास जाता है कि इस वर्ष में क्या चिंतन हुआ और क्या भविष्य की रूपरेखा किस प्रकार से। तो खैर संक्षिप्त में हम सब, क्योंकि आज हम लोग यहाँ सुनने के लिए अपने आदरणीय गेस्ट के लिए हम लोग यहाँ पर उपस्थित हैं, तो हम ये है कि बट इसकी जो जानकारी है कि मुझे लगा शायद बहुत से लोग सब जानते होंगे, बट एक बार उसकी तथ्यपूर्ण जानकारी हमारे पास हो तो और भी हम देश में हम एक अपने आप को गर्व का अनुभव, महानता का अनुभव करें कि ऐसी संस्थाएं जो हमारा विश्वविद्यालय सिस्टम बहुत पुराना है, बहुत ही जो है वो उच्चता को और नए मानदंडों को लेकर के है, जहाँ पे भारत की शिक्षा जो है वो कहते हैं विद्या से विमुक्त है, ज्ञान ही मुक्ति दे सकती है। तो यहाँ का ज्ञान जीवन की मुक्ति के लिए है, यहाँ का ज्ञान सिर्फ रोजगार के लिए नहीं है। तो ऐसे भारत के ऐसी अवधारणा के साथ में भारत जो है विश्वविद्यालयों के स्थापनाओं में और उसके सहयोग में सरकार बहुत दृढ़ता से लगी हुई है। और अभी वर्तमान मालूम होगा भारत के उस लक्ष्यों को विश्व के साथ कंप्लीट करने के लिए नई शिक्षा पॉलिसी को जो है उसे लागू कर दिया है, उस चीज़ को ध्वस्त कर दिया है। तो ये तमाम सारे ऐसे परिवर्तन देश में हो रहे हैं जिनमें बट वो सारे परिवर्तन उन तमाम शिक्षकों, तमाम विश्वविद्यालयों और जो लीडर्स हैं उनके बिना ये संभव नहीं है। और साथ साथ मैं बताना चाहूँगा कि ये जो प्रसंग है करीब 100 के आसपास, करीब 84 कुल 100 से ऊपर की स्ट्रेंथ है जो भारतीय विद्यालय संघ के ऑफिशियल्स हैं, करीब काम करते हैं पूरे देश की सारी व्यवस्था और विश्व की सारी विश्वविद्यालयों के साथ में सहसंबंध स्थापित करने का हमारा दायित्व है। तो विश्व में जितनी भी बॉडीज़ हैं उनके साथ में सारा समायोजन होता है। वर्तमान में भारतीय विद्यालय संघ की जो है वो हमारी जो महासचिव सेक्रेटरी जनरल मैडम पंकज मित्तल जी वर्तमान में हैं, तो मैडम के नेतृत्व में ये कार्य पूरे देश में हो रहा है। तो मैं ये कार्यक्रम पूरे देश के सारे विश्वविद्यालयों में संचालित हो रहा है। आपकी जानकारी के लिए ये देश के करीब आप समझे 10,40,000 टीचर्स, आप समझे 4 करोड़ से ज़्यादा स्टूडेंट्स और जो जितने संस्थान हैं जो शिक्षा जुड़े हुए हैं उनके बीच में भी ये सारे लिंक और सारी लाइव तमाम प्लेटफॉर्म के माध्यम से किया जा रहा है। तो ये जानकारी उन तक भी ये प्रेषित है। और वर्तमान में जो सीनियर मोस्ट वाइस चांसलर होता है पूरे कंट्री का, वो ऑटोमेटिक तौर पर वो इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटी का प्रेसिडेंट होता फॉर ईयर, 1 वर्ष के लिए वो जो सीनियरिटी टू द सर्विस ऑफ वाइस चांसलर। तो अभी जो 15-16 ईयर से ज़्यादा जिनकी वाइस चांसलरशिप है, करीब वो ट्रेंड चल रहा है कि ऐसे लोग जो है वो हर साल जो है वो नेतृत्व के लिए अपने आप उनका नाम आगे आता है। तो वो इसमें प्रोफेसर विनय पाठक जी जो कानपुर विश्वविद्यालय के वाइस चांसलर हैं, अभी वर्तमान में वो हैं। और अगले जो नेक्स्ट जुलाई से आ जाएंगे वो प्रोफेसर VN राजशेखर पिल्ले साहब, जो अगले प्रेसिडेंट होंगे भारतीय विद्यालय संघ के, जो पहले यूनिवर्सिटी ग्रांट कमीशन के वाइस चेयरमैन भी रहे, इग्नू के वाइस चांसलर रहे और वर्तमान में वो सोमैया यूनिवर्सिटी बॉम्बे में इसमें वाइस चांसलर हैं। तो छोटी सी जानकारी जो मुझे लगा कि आपके बीच में वो शेयर है। और साथ साथ में वहाँ पर एक पूरा सेक्रेटरीट काम करता है जिसमें कि सेक्रेटरी जनरल मेरा पंकज मित्तल जी, ऐसे ही वहाँ पर सेक्रेटरी हैं ममता रानी अग्रवाल जी, और अंदर जो है वो ज्वाइंट सेक्रेटरीज का एक पूरा वो है जिसमें स्पोर्ट्स एंड एक्टिविटीज़ देखते हैं प्रोफेसर वहाँ पर डॉक्टर बलजीत सिंह शेखो साहब, और ऐसे ही कुलदीप डागर जी जो इंटरनेशनल और वहाँ पर हमारी जो इक्वलेंस की चीज़ें हैं उनको देखते हैं। ऐसे वहाँ पर हमारे बीच में अमरेंद्र पानी जी हैं, डॉक्टर अमरेंद्र पानी जो सारे रिसर्च एक्टिविटीज़ को, हाँ मैं मेंशन करना भूल गया कि वहाँ पर अनुसंधान के कार्यक्रम रिसर्च डिवीज़न को हेड करते, और प्रोफेसर रमा पानी जी हैं जो पूरी यूनिवर्सिटी न्यूज़ निकलती है, जो पूरे देश में हर हफ्ते यूनिवर्सिटी न्यूज़ जाती है वीकली, जो ये भी देश का वर्ल्ड प्रतिमान है कि हर हफ्ते वो न्यूज़ हर डेस्क पे पहुंचती है। साथ साथ में वहाँ पर शिवम दीक्षित जी हैं, रंजना परिहार जी हैं, और अन्य तमाम ऐसे हमारे कर्मचारी हैं वहाँ पर, नाजरीन जी हैं जो मतलब एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन देखती हैं, ऐसे हमारे और संदीप कुमार हैं जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन देखते हैं। तो तमाम ऐसे हमारे जो मुख्य रूप से हैं, मैंने आपको नहीं किया कि ये सारे लोग जो पूरे विश्वविद्यालय की व्यवस्था में लगातार सहयोग कर रहे हैं। और ये वर्ष शताब्दी वर्ष है जिसको कि माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी आने वाले जो ये हमारा जून और जुलाई का मंथ है, तो अभी जो वर्तमान सिनेरियो आया है उस कारण से ये कुछ डेट आगे चल गई है। तो बट ये इसका एक विहंगम बहुत बड़ा राष्ट्रीय प्रोग्राम 100 वर्ष का माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के उसमें हम लोग उनकी डेट को अपेक्षित हैं कि जो आने वाले समय में उनके द्वारा यह जो है किया जाएगा। तो इस कार्यक्रम के साथ साथ मैं उसमें भी आप सबको समय से पहले उसे आह्वाहित करता हूँ कि जब भी ये होगा तो आप उसमें भाग लें। और ये जो श्रृंखला है ये श्रृंखला पूरे वर्ष 2026 जो है मार्च तक ये चलेगी। ये पूरा 100 वर्ष इस रूप में होगा, और इसमें बनाने में जो शिव नादर विश्वविद्यालय को एक बार पुनः बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद इसको ऑर्गेनाइज करने के लिए। और प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर मैं कहूँगा आज उपाधि दी जा रही सर को, तो मैं डॉक्टर प्रदीप कुमार सिन्हा सर को भी जो है बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि आपने सर से हृदय स्वीकार किया और आज यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। और आप सबको विशेष तौर पर बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि आप सब यहाँ पर पधारे हैं, आप सब उपस्थित हैं, और इस समारोह को सफल बनाने में आपकी उपस्थिति के बिना ये समारोह संभव नहीं, इसलिए एक जोरदार तालियां आप अपने लिए बजाएं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra, for your insightful words and taking us through the journey of AIU. Now, may I request Mr. Sinha to kindly deliver the centenary lecture. So kindly.
Vice Chancellor, representative from AIU, learned faculty, staff, and dear students. Unfortunately, I'm told this is exam time in Shiv Nadar, so I hardly see any students. And actually my talk was designed more for students. Nevertheless, I'm going to speak on the challenges and opportunities in the civil service, because that is something I know the best. As you're aware, the civil services examination is perhaps one of the most difficult examinations in India. Around 10 lakhs appeared for the prelims in 2024, out of which about 14,600 were selected for the main exam. Out of that, about 2,850 qualified for the UPSC interview, and finally only about 1,000 made it. So only about 0.1% of those who appeared got finally selected. You can imagine the level of competition. However, over the years, the profile of the civil service has changed completely. In my time, the number of engineers taking the exam and making it was very few. And the doctors were hardly any. Today, out of about 170 odd who make it to the IAS, about 100 are engineers. Somebody's clapping for that. And about 30 are doctors, you'll be surprised. Out of 170, 30 are doctors. Only about 40 are from the science and humanities background. But fortunately, the gender ratio in the civil services has also been steadily improving over the years. As compared to the 70s, again my time, when the gender ratio was only 8 to 9% in the service, it has now become about 1/3. The results of last year's exam were announced just a few days back. You might have seen in the papers. There were 3 women in top 5, including the topper, and 11 of them in top 25. Imagine 11 in top 25. This is a very happy trend. Similarly, the age profile has changed due to the government raising the maximum limit for taking the exam. These days we notice that the entrants in the service have considerable experience of having worked somewhere else for some years. This raising of age has been a result of youth demand due to lack of many opportunities. Another consideration before the government has been that the students from rural areas and weaker sections generally start their education late. For example, in my time, I'm just giving you a comparative situation, the age limit for general category was 26 years, and only 3 attempts were allowed. Today it is 32 years, and 6 attempts are allowed. For other categories, the maximum age limit ranges from 35 to 37 years, and the number of attempts range from 9 to unlimited. The net result is that the age profile of new joiners is very high now. Well, if you're looking for power and money, then this is not the right job for you. But if you are driven by the spirit of serving the nation and are committed to the values of integrity and hard work, this is the right place for you. It gives you tremendous opportunity to serve the people and contribute towards nation building. It also gives you the opportunity to work in diverse jobs, in different terrain. As I've been a part of the IAS, my talk will naturally focus on this service, though much of it would apply to the central services also. During training at the National Academy of Administration, all officers are allotted to different state cadres in the IAS. I was allotted to Uttar Pradesh, UP, where you're sitting, I think. Initially, you are posted in the field, in the subdivisions and districts, where you are exposed to grassroots administration and development. This is an extremely important phase of an IAS officer's career. They get to deal with different types of law and order situations, natural calamities, and are instrumental in implementing the developmental schemes that are conceived at the state and national levels. The field is a training ground. The harder you work at this level, the more complete officer you will become. An officer's reputation about his integrity, commitment to work, as also his human qualities, gets built up here. This reputation travels across the state and remains with him throughout his career. Thereafter, the officer gets an opportunity to work in the state secretariat, where he becomes a middle-level desk officer and gets involved with policy formulation at the state level. Suddenly, from being the topmost officer at the district level with all the creature comforts, he is grounded and made to push files with no perks. In my days, there was no transport facility for commuting to office at this level. And most of us, including myself, bought our first personal vehicle, a two-wheeler scooter, barring a few who returned with a car just after getting married. After all, IAS officers were high in the marriage market hierarchy. Life in the state capital was a struggle. Even the government accommodation was not easy to come by. But the learning was great in terms of how the government and the legislature function. There are some officers who get consumed by the cozy life of districts and keep hopping from one district to another, avoiding the struggles in the state capital. But they don't realize that they are missing out on invaluable experience. These officers generally become easygoing and laid back and remain in the state for the rest of their service. After serving in the state headquarters for some years, the officers who are looking for a complete, rounded experience prefer to go to Government of India on a deputation. The Government of India brings a completely different perspective, as it has to cater to all states and UTs. At the central government level, you also acquire an international perspective and work towards developing partnerships with other countries. For the first time, you get an opportunity to travel abroad, a big thing it used to be those days. That is something that doesn't happen at the state level. The central government is a completely different experience. You are deputed to one of the many ministries and allotted some part of its work. You start getting exposed to policy formulation at the central government level and find that the procedures for appraisal and approval of central schemes are comparatively more meticulous and based on detailed interministerial consultation. The parliamentary work is also more demanding and time-taking, as the parliamentary sittings are much more than the state legislative assemblies. The life struggles are also much more here in the central government, from school admission of your children to finding a government accommodation. But the experience and the international exposure that you get in the Government of India is extremely enriching. The career of an IAS officer is designed in a way that he spends early years in the field, followed by a few years in the state secretariat, and then finally moves to the Government of India. However, the rules are such that he has to go back to the state after every 4 to 5 years in the Government of India and cool his heels for 3 years in the state before he can return to the central government. This period is actually called the cooling period. I wonder why. Once the officer reaches very senior levels, then there is no need to return to the state. There is a lot of merit in this type of rotation for an officer to develop into a well-rounded officer, suitable to finally man the senior positions in the Government of India. In fact, the rules also stipulate that if you have not worked at the middle levels in the Government of India, that is at the deputy or the joint secretary levels, you are not considered for secretary level assignments in the Government of India. Now let me briefly tell you about my career, how my career moved, and also recount briefly some of my memorable experiences in the journey. I was a few days short of 22 years when I joined the service and at the National Academy of Administration at Mussoorie. After the training at Mussoorie, I was posted to Shahjahanpur for a year-long district training. The district training has a well-designed program. You are attached with the district level officers, even with some of the important clerks in the collector's office. Besides, you are actually posted as a BDO, Block Development Officer, and an SDM, Subdivisional Magistrate, for specified periods to get hands-on exposure. Those days, the SDM didn't have a government transport, and one had to go by public bus to the subdivisional headquarters. Today those times have changed. The only concession that was made was that the front seat adjacent to the drivers was reserved for the SDM side. This is the time, but this is the time to work hard. Ask the experienced officers as many questions as you can and tour the villages extensively. Having grown up in Delhi, this was my first exposure to rural India. In many ways, an eye-opener. After completion of training, my first posting was SDM Allahabad, where I lasted about 9 months, was transferred to Aligarh as city magistrate from there on a sort of punishment posting because I refused to grant a gun license to an undeserving person recommended by the local MLA, who also happened to be the state president of the ruling party. So he just ensured my transfer. Another memory that I have of those early days, how a young mind, idealistic mind works. Early days is that the prevalent corruption at the lower levels, like the court staff, the peons, and even the driver who was stealing petrol from the jeep, used to bother me so much. This used to trouble me so much that I wrote all my judgments in hand. Throughout my stay there, hundreds of judgments I wrote in my own hand, not relying on my Peshkar Sahib, as they are called, readers. And kept monitoring the petrol in the jeep. Pichla kab baraya tha, kitne kilometer chaliye, those kind of things. So the senior officer told me jokingly one day that if you spend so much time on these issues, there'll be no time left for tackling the bigger issues. I can tell you it took me many months to get these issues off my head. And I realized that at my individual level, I can only do that much to reform the system. Aligarh was one of the most communally sensitive districts in UP. Those days and riots were very frequent. That's why the punishment. Even small happenings between the two communities could escalate any time. SDMs were placed on duty on the roads, actually, in sensitive areas. And they sometimes spent all of 24 hours there on the road. The then DM seemed unhappy with his posting, but he was well connected, used his connections to get himself transferred out. The next DM was relatively inexperienced and weak, and lo and behold, major riots broke out in August 1981. After the Eidgah tragedy of Moradabad, you people may not remember, it's an old sting. There were several casualties and the city remained under full or partial curfew for more than 2 months. The situation limped back to normalcy with the help of army and paramilitary forces. I was also injured in one of the incidents, but this gave me tremendous confidence. Is that okay? So I was also injured in one of the incidents, but this gave me tremendous confidence and understanding of how to deal with law and order situations. There was so much learning from this incident that it can take me hours to describe. Sometimes I do it. Many are not happy to listen to it, but they have to. From Aligarh, I was posted as Under Secretary Planning Department of the state government at Lucknow, perhaps because of my economics background. The state was just embarking upon decentralized system of planning for development. After about a year of working there, I got pulled up to the Chief Minister's office as Deputy Secretary at the behest of the Secretary to Chief Minister, who was my last DM at Aligarh, during whose tenure the riots were actually controlled. After serving there for about a year, when my batch was getting posted for the much-awaited job of young IAS officers, district magistrate, I got posted to Jaunpur near Varanasi, which happened to be the home district of the then Chief Minister. Stayed there for 2 years. Here too I had to face a very difficult situation in June 1984. Following the Operation Blue Star, under which the Golden Temple was cleaned up of Khalistani terrorists, you might remember. About 606 soldiers had killed their commanding officer at Ramgarh, now in Jharkhand, and started moving in trucks towards Punjab, heavily armed. They crossed Bihar and even the border districts of UP, and it was at Jaunpur that they were ambushed for the first time by the regular army. 32 deserters and 42 regular army Jawans died in that ambush. 2 civilians also died in stray firing. I have vivid memory of that. There was the army commander, Colonel Mandana, I still remember his name. 2 of us were watching it from a distance. city curfew was ordered, but it was near impossible to implement it, as Jaunpur had never seen a curfew before. And people were coming out in hordes to see what curfew looks like. So how do you impose the curfew? On the other hand, on the contrary, in Aligarh, curfew was automatic. We didn't have to impose it. The moment something happened, everybody went indoors and there was curfew. Here, nobody had seen a curfew, so you just couldn't implement it. Ultimately, we had to lift it. About 306 soldiers, mostly raw recruits, उनकी दाढ़ी भी नहीं आई थी actually, were arrested in Jaunpur. Others were arrested in adjoining districts. After talking to the deserters, one came to know that they were misguided by the clerical staff of the regimental center. They were told all this is happening in Punjab, all false stories about what was happening in Punjab. So they killed their commander and started moving. But to their credit, despite being heavily armed, they did not harm a single civilian, even though one or two of them were lynched by the civilians, when they were going through the city. But they did not harm a single civilian. This is another incident that I normally like to narrate in great detail, but time doesn't permit that here. Got posted to the Home Department of the state government from there, considered a dry and thankless posting. The transfer from Jaunpur was again due to the pressure of local MLA who insisted on cancellation of a clerk's transfer, mind you, a clerk in the collector's office, which I didn't oblige, but he had the ears of the chief minister. Thereafter, in a year's time, after completing 9 years of service in the state, I got my first deputation to the Government of India as Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Power. This stint was real hard work, and after working there for about 5 years, went back to the state as DM Agra, which had mainly two main focus areas, tourism and water scarcity. All heads of state who visited India also came to Agra. Even today this happens. On an average, one head of state came every week. The DM had to receive, accompany him or her throughout the stay, and then see off the dignitary. This consumed much of DM's time. It was certainly an honor, though, to have interacted with so many heads of state during my stint there. It was the year 1991. The USSR had split into different countries, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and all these. And all those heads of state were coming to India one by one to reaffirm their friendship to India, because USSR was very friendly to India. And another thing which I remember is that when the Uzbekistan head of state came to Agra, I was with him and he visited the Taj. Mind you, Babur Mughals came from Samarkand in Uzbekistan. So that delegation were very proudly looking at the monument, and because it was built by one of their ancestors. So incidentally, Lady Diana also came during that stint, when she was she had already separated, and there was a whole global media following her there. And in fact, one of them, because Taj Mahal is the monument of love, so one of the journalists from the global media asked her, why have you come alone to this monument of love? I remember the answer she gave, take your guess. From Agra, I was transferred in about a year after earning the wrath of the local MP again as Vice Chairman, Merit Development Authority, considered a demotion as compared to DM Agra. This post was bifurcated out of another post, and the government accommodation went with that. So my first task was to find a house on rent. The Development Authority was also in a mess and ridden with corruption. Stayed there for about 2 years and again managed to annoy the local MP, Merit. Look at this now. Merit was going into an election and the MP wanted a functionary to be assigned a particular lucrative job. He wanted कि इस आदमी को आप ये काम दे दीजिए Merit Development Authority में. The reason he very frankly gave to me that the said functionary has promised him a vehicle for the election. He will donate a vehicle to him for the election. There was no way I could have agreed to that. Consequently, I was meted out perhaps the biggest punishment of my career and shunted to a nondescript post in a block headquarter of district Jaunpur, where I had been DM 10 years ago. The idea was to humiliate me. Anyway, I joined there, and after 3 months was shifted to Lucknow as secretary of Uttarakhand Development Department. Probably the then chief secretary took pity on me. As if that was not enough, I was transferred again after 3 months as Commissioner Varanasi, a very coveted post, by the same government. Fed up by such transfers, I had in the meantime applied for my second central deputation. The posting came after 4 months and moved to Delhi as Director, Department of Youth Affairs and Sports. It sounded like a real come down from the mighty commissioner's job. Nevertheless, I was happy to get away from the politics of the state. In the Government of India, one generally has a stable 5-year tenure and is not exposed to ministers much at the middle management level, where I was at that time. Sports and Youth Ministry was relatively unimportant from the biodata point of view. But having been inclined towards sports in my youth, it turned out to be one of my most interesting assignments. One was interacting with youth and international level sports persons, and also attending international sports competitions. After a 5-year stint, I reverted back to UP and was posted as planning secretary. After about a year there, I in fact got posted to your city in Greater Noida Authority in 2001 as additional chief executive officer. The city was developing under some very detailed, city was just coming up those days, and under some very detailed planning and supervision and of the authority. Hardly a year would have passed when the state government changed, and all officers in the Greater Noida Authority were transferred overnight. The reason some of you might guess. I was posted in Resident Commissioner UP's office. It so happened that the government in Lucknow changed again. It was that Mayawati, Mulayam that time, you know. So, changed again. And the CEO and me, as additional CEO, got posted back to Greater Noida. But that too was short-lived, and I went back to Lucknow as Principal Secretary Irrigation, which is one of the biggest assignments of the state. Having seen so many transfers, I decided to again opt for deputation to the Government of India, my third. This time I was picked up as the Joint Secretary and Financial Advisor in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas in 2004. And actually never went back to the state after that, as I became relatively senior. Worked in Petroleum Ministry for more than 7 years and got promoted as Secretary Shipping and Ports. Found this job very interesting. After about a year and 4 months in that job, I was given the very important assignment of Power Secretary, Government of India, where I had worked earlier also as Deputy Secretary and Director for 5 years. Had an extremely productive tenure of 2 years there, when the country wiped out the power deficits and the unified national power grid came into existence. From power in June 2015, I got picked up as the 31st Cabinet Secretary of India. Cabinet Secretary is the head of civil service and reports directly to the Prime Minister. I served as Cabinet Secretary for 4 years and 3 months, whereafter I was taken to the PMO as the Principal Advisor to the Prime Minister. Needless to say that as Cabinet Secretary and later in the PMO, one was associated with many of the important initiatives of the government. In March 2021, I decided to finally hang my boots after 44 years of continuous and dedicated service to the nation. Now to conclude, let me summarize some of the main challenges and opportunities in the civil service, some of them based on my own experience. On the challenges side, which while I could draw up a long list, let me just mention the main ones as follows. 1, political interference. Let me start with the caveat that not all politicians are prone to put pressure on the civil servants. And not everything they say is wrong. We should not assume it, think of it that way. Sometimes the officers also tend to become too rule-bound. But some politicians do put pressure, and regardless of whatever good work you may be doing, for 2 years, 1 year, whatever time, will punish you if you don't do their billing. This is what happened in all my field postings narrated above. However, we need to remember that they are public representatives and have a perspective different from ours. We should in fact make an effort to understand their point of view and take up issues only when the request is totally unreasonable and wrong. In this context, I remember and always quote when the then Chief Minister, when I was Deputy Secretary in the Chief Minister's office in UP, said, during my early service days, he had said that the civil servants must bend the rules up to the point that it doesn't break, to provide relief to the poor and downtrodden. Number 2, frequent transfers and movement. The second time I came on central deputation to Delhi, in the application form for school admission of my children, Sardar Patel Vidyalaya in Delhi, where I also studied incidentally, there was an item to be filled in the form, school last attended. And the form provided 2-3 lines for that. I remember we had to write as per list attached in that row, because there were 8 or 9 schools they had already attended. Till then, this can be very trying for the children, as every time they had to make new friends. Not to say about the dislocation and difficulty of frequently moving to a new city with bag and baggage, finding an accommodation, etc. This could be one reason why children of civil servants don't choose the same vocation, unlike most other professions. Number 3, politician-bureaucrat nexus. This is a dangerous phenomenon which is getting more and more prevalent. Some civil servants get attached to one or more politicians and enjoy the blessings of each other. The bureaucrat seeks important assignments and thereafter toes the line. This does immense harm to the system because objectivity and merit gets compromised. There are examples of civil servants who always enjoy the favor of politicians, regardless of whichever political party is in power. Such a cozy relationship between some bureaucrats and politicians also has an extremely demotivating effect on the straightforward officers, as all the coveted postings, including foreign postings, are cornered by these aligned officers. Number 4, siloed working. Another thing which can be frustrating is the empire building which each department tends to do in the government. And they keep protecting their turf. This happens in all organizations. Why the government? This kind of siloed working can be a big hindrance in achieving the best results and can delay decision making considerably. It takes immense efforts to bring the various departments on the same page. On the opportunity side also, let me mention a few important ones. Firstly, the best thing that the civil service does is to enable you to serve the country and its people. Throughout the career, there will be ample opportunities to take proactive decisions that are in the best interest of the people and the country. And this gives, let me tell you, gives immense job satisfaction. Secondly, the service gives you an exposure to the rural hinterland in the early and formative years of service. During the ensuing years, one gets familiar with the various layers of governance, starting from the grassroots level to the union government. This gives a deep understanding of the administrative processes at the different levels and helps you to formulate the right policy and schemes. Thirdly, the civil service gives exposure to several sectors of the economy and the government. One day you might find yourself working in the social sector, thereafter in some economic ministry, and then maybe in an infrastructure ministry. This vastly develops the knowledge base of the officers and is a very fulfilling experience. One can try to specialize in your area of choice. Some civil service servants develop so much expertise that they are picked up by international organizations. There are others who, because of their innovative work, make a big name for themselves and are remembered for a long time. I must say that this has a flip side also, that the civil servants need to constantly upgrade themselves in terms of technological advancements. And because this is a day, when everybody needs to be an expert of their area, and civil servants are more of generalists. So wherever they are working, they need to keep abreast with the latest and the technological advancements. Keep upgrading the knowledge. I can keep adding to the list, but for the sake of time, let me just mention one more, and that is international perspective and exposure. Because of the nature of job in the central government dealing with other countries on a bilateral basis or with various multilateral organizations, the officer acquires a global outlook and gets familiar with the governance in other countries as well. I think I should stop here and now take questions from, if there are any. We'll try to answer them to the best of my knowledge and ability. Thank you.
We will pass the mics around. Would you like to answer the questions from?
No, it's okay.
It's okay. We will pass the mic around for questions. Ritu, from your side, my side. Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for the lecture. The depth of your perspective and the richness of the experience, both were very well appreciated. Thank you so much. I had two questions. One is with regard to the changing profile of the educational background of people who are coming into the civil services. What, in your understanding, is the net gain of people coming from engineering and the medical profession? And also, what, as a consequence of that, is loss when you don't have people coming from the humanities and the social sciences, but working within a setup where you need a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding of the social profile, etc. So what is gained and what is lost? That's number one. And number two, primarily because you've also served at the top levels of the bureaucratic apparatus of the government of India. In your experience, when you've found yourself differing with the executive, what has been your experience of the receptivity of your idea in the political executive? Thank you so much.
Can you tell me about yourself?
My name is Atul Mishra. I am at the Department of International Relations and Governance Studies. I teach there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, your first question, what is the gain and the loss? Very difficult to quantify the gain or the loss. But thing is that, as the society changes, because today, in most families, the children want to become engineers. In our time, this was not so much so. In fact, I was the one who left IIT to join economics in St. Stephen's. So the trend has changed. Today, everybody wants to become an engineer. I see in my own extended family, there are two kids, boy and a girl, both doing engineering, and in engineering, computer science. So one, it is a result of that societal change, that the profile has changed. To quantify the gain or the loss, well, engineers coming into any organization are welcome. They will, because of their background, technical background, mathematical background, sciences, pure sciences background, they will be an asset for any organization. So that's the gain. I'm not sure so much about the doctors, because the doctors are very few. The ratio of population and doctors is very, still small in the country. So the doctors coming in such large numbers, and I think that's a waste of resource, And then actually what you need in the civil services is a mix of people from diverse backgrounds. But ultimately, since it's a competition, wherever the best brains are going after school level, they will make it, They will make it to the civil service. So it has pluses and minuses both. I mean, engineers are welcome, but they have to be people from the humanities and sciences background as well, which are now very few. And doctors, certainly, there can be a debate around that. Similarly, you haven't asked this question, but similarly on the age profile, there are pros and cons. If you join at a young age, I was less than 22 when I joined. You can be molded in the way you like, the government likes. The training can really mold you, And the mind is absolutely idealistic and impressionistic at that time. But if you're joining at 35, and 30 or 35, and if you know that you're never going to make it to the higher echelons of the service, your priorities will be different. Your priorities will be different. So there are pros and cons. I will not like to go into the age thing too much because it has arguments on both sides. Well, your other question was? About, difference of perspective between... Age is catching up with me. Sorry, difference of perspective between the political executive and... I'll tell you. as I said, in my caveat that not all politicians are bad, and not everything they say is wrong. Sometimes we also tend to be very rule bound, going by the letter, not by the spirit. But based on my own experience, what I will say is that at the field level, the district level and below, and that level, field level, the politicians are, the interference is much more. The transfer, vote transfer, those small things. I gave you one or two examples. Now, how could I agree to that if he's saying in front of me that this fellow has promised me a vehicle, to donate a vehicle to me, and therefore you put him in that lucrative job? How can you agree to that? And the other example that I gave with the clerk's transfer, this was a rotational transfer. This happens in all organizations. If you're on one seat for more than 3 years, 5 years, whatever time limit, you're rotated, you're sent to some other seat. So this was one of those, entire chain was there. Now he's insisting that you get him back on that chair. If I get one person back, the whole chain gets broken and maybe destroyed, So how could I agree? But if you may be doing really good work in your district for the last 2 years, but one single thing will get you transferred. But at the higher level, the difference is at the higher level, At the higher level, when you become secretary to the government or cabinet secretary, I had the opportunity to work with many ministers, Jyotiraditya Scindia, as secretary, in power 2 ministers, Jyotiraditya Scindia and Piyush Goyal, shipping, there was a minister from South India, I forget the name. And then, of course, the Prime Minister for many years, 6 years almost. So at that level, it's different, There, it's not really interference. You may be differing in your views. You may be differing in your ideas. And after all, they are politicians, So they will naturally look at their perspective. They have to come back. They have to win the election and come back. So your views will differ sometimes. They may want something to be done in a certain way. You may not want it that way. But ultimately, they have the last word. They have the last word. So it's not that troublesome at the highest levels. But at the field level, it can be troublesome. And I in every posting at the field level, it happened with me. And I'm sure it must be happening with many people, most people. I hope I have answered your question.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for walking us through your very interesting and impressive journey of 44 years of this impressive career. I am from the School of Natural Sciences, but my question is about something to do with the taxes. In your journey that was shown in the video, we saw that you also had a role to play in the GST implementation. So we all have seen how the previous tax regime, so be it from octroi to excise duty and others, had crippled our manufacturing across the country. I would like to know, because you have been at such senior levels, what is the kind of thought process that a countrywide administration had to go through and the decision makers had to go through to implement such a drastic and dramatic change across the country? And what exactly was the role played by you, if you can disclose it? Thank you.
I will not say I was the inventor of this regime, far from true. But, the homework was going on for quite some time. And, there were so many different types of taxes at the state level and excise at the central government level. Indirect taxes I'm talking of, forget the direct tax. So there was excise at the central government level. There were so many different types of indirect taxes at the state government level. And all, creating trouble. So the main thought was to make it easy for the business, for the industry. So that the economy can develop with speed. So that was the main thought. And it took a lot of homework before it was finally launched. If you remember, it was launched at 12 midnight. Do you remember? Yeah. Yes. Jointly by the President and the Prime Minister in the Central Hall of the Parliament. We were all there. And because it was meant to show that this, there's a revolutionary change which is happening, and indeed it was. But when you shift from one governance model to another, it's always not a perfect situation. Still there are so many reforms needed in the GST. So when the GST was implemented and launched on that day, there were so many teething troubles, kept coming every day. So my role mainly, actually, you could say, was to sort of smoothen out those things. At my level, as Cabinet Secretary, have meetings almost every day with the concerned secretaries and state chief secretaries also, because, virtually you could, since these virtual meeting facilities been available, so I could, you can imagine, I could talk simultaneously to all the DMs of the country. That facility is there. So how effective you can be in governance today when you can talk to all DMs of the country, or you can review a certain program with all the DMs of the country over a period of 1 hour. So this is how effective the governance has today become. So my main role was there, and in sort of smoothing out, sorting out, the teething troubles, the other issues that were coming in the actual implementation of the GST. And that process, I think, is continuing even today.
Thank you, sir, for the breadth. I echo what Atul said about the depth and breadth of your talk. You've had such rich experience, and there's so much learning for posterity, I think, embedded in your experience. We recently heard about the case of a Haryana IAS officer as well, who'd been transferred so many times. So are you planning to sort of document this, write a book for posterity, which would be tremendous learning, I think, not only for the community of civil servants, but a larger society outside? And there's a second sort of question as well. Can you tell, to the extent that the students are here, can you tell them about the changing hierarchy amongst the central services since the time you joined and now? How has that changed?
Yeah, so your second question first. Well, yes, you are absolutely right. Maybe you know about it. And within the central services, IAS, IPS, and Indian Forest Service, these three are the All India services. These are called All India services, IAS, IPS, and Indian Forest Service. Because you are allotted to the state cadre, and you have to serve in the state unless you come on deputation to the Government of India. All other services, including the Indian Foreign Service, Indian Audit Account Service, Indian Revenue Service, a whole lot of them, are called the central services. Now the changing hierarchy which he is referring to, let me mention that here. In my time, the most preferred service after the IAS and the IPS was the Indian Audit Account Service. And over the years it changed, and for last many years, the most preferred service after the IAS and IPS is today Indian Revenue Service, Income Tax and Customs. I don't want to elaborate on that. And another thing that happened was that in my time, the Indian Foreign Service was the cream, like the first 20 of the batch in the merit list. The first 20 went to the Foreign Service. Jayashankar is my batchmate, incidentally. Same 1977 batch. The first 20 went to the Foreign Service. Obviously, I was not in the first 20, you can guess. So, today, the people don't opt for the Foreign Service. So the Foreign Service, the last man in the Foreign Service could be somewhere in the bottom of the list. This is another change that has happened. So I think that should be enough on the hierarchy. And on your first question about my plans to, well, I do have plans, but let's see when it sees the light of the day. I want some years to pass, and then I will write.
May I also question? So a very interesting journey that you started from, you mentioned that from Jaunpur to really to,
आप तो उधर ही के कहीं के लगते हैं.
high office, Allahabad. Yeah.
इलाहाबाद.
So, ये बहुत अच्छा है कि, so my question is that, like, when you really posted in a small taluka level, ever you imagine that maybe sometime come to revenge in mind, that one day I will become that cabinet secretary and I will see you?
I didn't follow that question.
So question,
हिंदी में बोलिए.
हाँ जी. So it's very clear, like when you posted there and sometime the punishment posting, at the time you realize somehow that's कि okay, one day I will become the, you know, top boss, I will become the principal secretary, I will become this thing, then I will see you, maybe any politician or any person. Or second thing that at the time also that you imagine that, okay, I born from some great thing. You have a feeling before coming to the level of the cabinet secretary or come to the PMO office, ever you imagine that's maybe 20 years ago that somehow during posting, it's keep happening only that?
Well, your first question first. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होता है. ऐसा होता नहीं. Because वो बात गई, you know, and कोई झगड़ा थोड़ी किसी से हो रहा है, you know. And I met many of these people, you know, the MLA I talked about in Jaunpur. You must be familiar with Jaunpur very much. And, you know, we met after that, we met with full courtesies and no problem. So it doesn't happen, you know, because he's fighting for his stuff, his constituency. I'm doing my work. And the maximum they can do is transfer, theek hai, kar lo. So that never happens. And you're not even thinking at that stage that one day you will become the cabinet secretary. You're not thinking. Your second question is that, whether you thought that this will happen. Well, I actually know. That answer is again no, because after I kept getting transferred, you know, and I thought maybe something is wrong with me. You know, when I got posted to a block headquarters in Jaunpur, and where I was DM 10 years ago, I really thought there's something wrong with me. And many of my batchmates also thought कि ये तो अब गया, you know. Sometimes the peer group is happy if somebody is lost, you know. So the flanks, as they say, are happy, you know. So, but there was always a chance. This was at the back of the mind because I was the youngest in my batch. I was less than 22 when I joined the service. I was not even 21 when just 21 when I took up the exam. So that outside chance was always there. But since I was having, you know, I was always sort of having difference of opinion with the political executive, I really never thought that I will make it there, ultimately. But I did make it, despite going very straight throughout my career. I did make it, and I did survive. It happens. God was kind, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sinha, I know the Q&A won't stop, but we would like to have the pleasure to invite you again for the Q&A. So with that, we will stop the question answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sinha, for your gracious words and your inspiring journey. Now I'd like to invite AIU official Dr. Alok Kumar Mishra to present a memento.
यहाँ पे आप memento present कर दीजिए. Anubha, will you help? Yeah. Ananya, will you show?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra and Mr. Sinha. May I now request all the guests to please join the audience.
Maybe now request you to please come.
Ma'am, to
and
please
the
stay on
stage to
stage.
be- Maybe request you to come down.